Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Not to Talk About podcast. It's episode 16 now. And before we get into asking Tom how he is, I just want to say a massive thank you to everyone because the channel now has surpassed 10,000 views. So that means obviously 10,000 views on all our episodes so far, which is obviously crazy for a newly founded podcast, which we still are. We started this just over 2 months ago, and it obviously does mean a lot. So thank you from obviously on behalf of myself and Tom, and obviously producer Char as well. But obviously now we get into the episode, and Tom, how are you, brother?
Yeah, I'm good, mate. I'm good. I'm glad to be recording. Obviously, it was a weird one not to record in between the games, but I think the quick turnaround, everyone would rather see us do a proper review. And to be fair, it's probably a good thing. We're going to be a little bit more positive now. As we're going to get into the two games, obviously a bit of a contrast there. But yeah, I just want to reiterate what you said there. You know, we're just thankful for all the support. I know we say it a lot, but we mean it. And obviously, it has led us to potential partnerships we've spoken about on the page, and the support has been unbelievable. And like you say, 10,000 views. But obviously, we do see just a reminder from producer Charlie, which always reminds us that for you guys to hit subscribe. Obviously, we know that the viewer figures are amazing, and we're so thankful for all of you. But we do know there are quite a few of you that are watching that aren't subscribed, and the more of you subscribe, the more it helps us out. So if you could just press that button, that would be amazing.
Beautifully explained. Couldn't put it any better myself, but obviously you mentioned it felt weird not to record between games. That obviously suggests that we had two, so let's start with the first one. Obviously Swindon away. Obviously, I mean, we were both there. It was pretty much well, I don't want to say diabolical, but it wasn't the best day out. Let's put it that way. And overall, let's start by just getting your thoughts on that.
Mate, it was disaster from a personal point of view. A disaster. Obviously, at the last minute, spontaneous trip for me. I woke up in the morning. I was like, you know what, let's go. So I rushed to get there. Made sure that I was running to get. I thought maybe it was sold out. Obviously, we've had brilliant away attendances this season. So I sprinted across this grass, and then my shoes got absolutely ruined. I've written my shoes off trying to get there on time to get a ticket. But that's the stuff we do for this football club. Unfortunately, the performance on the pitch probably didn't reflect the commitment of all the fans, not just me. You know, all the fans that have travelled to be there, and obviously as well, a few people on the day actually said about the podcast. So thank you to those people as well. Always appreciate that you're watching and listening, and that, you know, it's great. And I think that's probably where the positives start and end in terms of the game. I'm going to be honest, like watching it back, which I did. I don't know why I did it to myself. Watching it back, it wasn't as bad as I thought, especially second half. The performance wasn't as bad as I thought watching it at the time. But I'm not going to lie, there's been very few games recently, last couple of years, where you felt hopeless and helpless and frustrated. And that's exactly how I felt watching that game, because it was like, especially first half, you just felt like you wanted to scream, like, come on, do something. And nothing was happening. It was so frustrating. How did you see it, mate? Because I know at the time you were a little bit frustrated.
Yeah, I mean, it don't take a lot for me to be frustrated at football, I'm going to be perfectly honest, but I just think for the performance that we put in, especially when you consider how far people had to travel, I think it was just shy of 3 hours there and back, to walk around and act in a way of no intensity towards the game, which is evidently what it was, because it was terrible from pretty much start to finish, especially like when you consider the amount of effort that was put in and the goals that we got to as well. No football away supporter deserves to go to an away match and watch your team turn in them sort of goals. I mean, on another day, you know, we're celebrating a last minute winner, where obviously via the Jata goal, but obviously because of our two hiccups, which you can't really say they were hiccups because we've seen them sort of goals all season now. Like, that's why when the first one went in, I just started laughing, because we've seen it so many times in the Slocum one that like we've seen him do that a number of times now. It's honestly nothing new in the fact that, you know, these goals go around social media and go quite viral, and people are like, "Oh, you got to feel sorry for the Notts fans." trust me, you don't, because it's something that we've had to become used to. I mean, for the Slocum point of view, it started way back in his first game of 2023, Oldham away, when he ran out of his box for absolutely no reason. And yeah, look, all these things have been costly. And look, Maynard said it in his interview yesterday, I believe. Obviously, we'll get onto this game, but he said you can't coach for individual mistakes, which is true. But obviously, what Maynard can do is coach a team that's going to play for 90 minutes of football. And what his team didn't do in that Swindon game was look like they wanted to play for 10, never mind 90. And it's a shame. It is a shame because there's a lot of players on that pitch who you would have expected better from. I'm not going to name names. I think anyone watching and yourself now can probably understand who I'm thinking of. But yeah, look, this season has gone rapidly downhill. It's a lot less about aiming for anything in terms of playoffs or just any sort of. It's all about just trying to put a run of games together. And that's what we're struggling to do. We are struggling to do that in a minute, and it is difficult, and it all leads into certain, events and questions being asked. But a question I have to ask you about the Swindon game is, I want to talk about Scott Robertson because obviously, we've been massively full of praise of him in these past few episodes, and obviously there's no surprises there because he has been faultless. But see, against Swindon, it wasn't his best performance. He played the ball back for the first goal. I hit the post and ricocheted out to the striker. He obviously finished it, and after that led to a bit of criticism online after the game. It was definitely a mixed bag, and I just want to obviously get your thoughts on him. I think I know how it's going to go. But obviously, it does strike a good question because when you've got a mixed bag about a player, it's always good to get a clarity of two different opinions. And I'm sure you're going to have a different opinion today, but I'm going to ask you anyway.
Yeah, well, just quickly before Scott Robertson, because like you say, I have probably got a slightly different opinion, but just on the performance as a whole, very briefly, it felt very much like a typical game that we've seen under Stuart Maynard. As in, we had an early chance, really good chance early on, which we missed. And how many times has that happened? There's been probably 4 or 5 games we've played where we've missed an early chance and then we've gone on to lose it. And talking of the first goal that put us behind, literally just before that goal, I kind of turned to you guys and said, this game it's been awful, and I think that the goal will come from a mistake from us because they aren't creating anything with the ball and they're not having the ball enough to make a mistake. It was 2 poor sides playing against each other, and the team that had the ball was going to make a mistake, and we had all the ball, and that's what happened ultimately. I think Scott Robertson, mistake aside, and that's very big thing to say because that's like saying it's like if a player missed a penalty. Other than missing the penalty, which could have won you the game, they had a good game. Like it's a bit silly to say, but what I mean by that is his overall performance. Fair enough. After that mistake, he was chasing it a little bit, and he was a bit erratic, and he was trying to jump and win the ball and things like that. But second half especially, there were a couple of really nice runs which he made. He was breaking the lines really well. He looked like, again, the one thing I like about Scott Robertson is that we mentioned the lack of intensity, but he is one player that I don't think you can ever really level that at. He's always working hard. He's always trying. And that's all you can really ask for at the minute. When heads have dropped, confidence is low. You need those players that are going to work hard. Don't get it wrong, the mistake, it is pretty awful. It's really poor, and he knows that. But I think players do make mistakes, and I think of all the players in the team, he's kind of one of the ones you can, again, allow to make a mistake. It's not the right word, but you can kind of forgive and move on just because of the effort levels he puts in. That's how I see it anyway. I thought he played well, other than obviously a huge game-defining mistake, which is ultimately cost us the game, really.
Yeah, it has. It absolutely did. I mean, look, the easiest way you can pull it is if you cancel out one of them mistakes, you leave with a point at least, because obviously Jata scores. But speaking of which, with Jata, he obviously didn't start the game, and it brings me on to what I want to speak about next, which is the team selection. Because at 2:00 on that Friday, I certainly expected him to be the lineup, and he wasn't. He was replaced for David McGoldrick. And for me, that was the completely wrong decision. I don't know what you thought about it, but for me, he didn't look very, very positive on the pitch. I thought he didn't look fit. If I'm going to be honest, I thought in terms of selecting him, I just thought it was a bit desperate. I thought it was Maynard trying to put his best players out to try and win a game of football, and it weren't the right move at all. I think he would have been a lot better off with Jota. But hey, we're not the manager these days, and we don't get to pick the team. But what I do get to do is ask you about the team selection. That's what I'm going to do now, and I just want to get your thoughts on that, because for me, I do think he got it wrong.
No, I agree. I agree 100%. I think you got it wrong. I think you got it wrong. I think Jata should start. I think Jata should be starting every game. I think that's not because he's Jata. I think that's because he's the player that's in form. He's one of the few players that's got positivity around him. He's one of the few players that's giving, I won't say giving 100%, but he's running hard every single game. I think you got it wrong. I think, again, and McGoldrick's a player who actually thought, a lot of people thought he played poorly, and I get that. I think he, again, was a player who was trying to do stuff, like he was at least trying to take the game to them in a game where it was, especially first half, it was so flat. Both sides were so flat. At least he was trying a few things, but you hit the nail on the head. He wasn't fit. You could tell he wasn't fit. He's been injured, and he wasn't 100%. And intensity comes from being fit, doesn't it, ultimately? And he didn't have the intensity in that game. He looked every bit of his 36 or whatever he is, 35, 36 years old. He looked every bit of that. And when you've got a man who's in form and who's hungry like Jata is, for me, he's got to start. It was the wrong decision, and we saw how much of a handful he was. He scored, obviously we're going to get onto it, he scored that goal late on, and the ball fell to him in the box as well. He almost created another chance straight after it. And I know we're going to get onto it as well, but I also think that it's okay to make a mistake as a manager and get the wrong selection. That happens, but it's about rectifying it, and I do think that he should have brought Jata on way sooner than he did. It's about responding to your mistake, and okay, you recognise Jata should have started. If you don't bring him on at half time, you give it 10 minutes, because we did have a response after the break, and I know we're going to come on to that as well. There was a response. Maybe you give it 10 minutes, 15 minutes, but it shouldn't have got to as late as it did before we saw Jata come onto the pitch, in my opinion.
No, look, I absolutely agree. I feel like when you say there that the game was flat in the first half, it definitely was, and I do feel like in against somebody like that, I think someone like Jata, who can obviously run in behind and stand defenders up, bully them about a little bit, I thought he would have been perfect for it. It was obviously a Swindon team as well that obviously, before the game, everyone knew they weren't in the best of form, had their own problems defensively, etc. And I just thought, Jata, an informed Jata, against a backline like that probably would have been more beneficial, but who knows, mate. And obviously, again, you mentioned it, he came on and got his goal, and it does strike you the question of should he have been brought on sooner, and I do agree again. I feel like he definitely should have been brought on sooner. I wouldn't say half time, but I don't think he should have been long after it, that's for sure. And again, I mean, when he comes on and scores with probably one of his only clear-cut chances, it probably does tell you a story on the day of what we're trying to say now, where the team selection was wrong, because it took him, across into the box. It was pretty much a half chance with a header, and it's in the back of the net. But then it was a 93rd minute. It's all a bit too little too late for me. And I think that was pretty much, you could say that's pretty much one of the stories of the season, too little too late. But it's just one of them things, mate, I guess. But again, let's talk about some of the reactions at full time, because obviously we spoke about the reaction in the second half, but you have to talk about the reaction at full time. There was a lot of love for Jata, but not too much love for anyone else, and I feel like the man who felt the most of that was Stuart Maynard, who got, I don't want to say individually booed because he was with his management team, but as a collective they got hounded off that football pitch. And to be fair, quite rightly so. But again, look, you come to a place like Swindon, and it's obviously not. We didn't play well at all. It was a terrible performance. If we're going to be truthful, because it definitely ain't the level of performance you'd expect from a team like Notts, especially what we've seen this season so far. And they took a lot of flack for it. And again, supporters, travelled 3 hours there, 3 hours back, paid a lot of money. Damn tickets weren't cheap. And again, look, I just want to hear your thoughts on that, because obviously I'll offer you mine after, but it's always nice to get yours first, brother.
I mean, let's put it this way. That game has kept Swindon up. That game will keep Swindon up. they were dropping like a stone. And if they hadn't won that game, say we won that game and they got no points for it, which we should have done, they'd be on 44 now, and I think that would mean they'd be 5 points clear of relegation with like however many games it is, 5 or 6 left. And the form they're in, they're not going to pick many more points up this season, so they probably would go. But now they're 8 points above the drop, so they are probably going to stay just about stay up. That's because I know you can say that about all the teams that are down there because we've lost to pretty much all of them, so they've all got 3 points off us. But that one in particular is one that you probably look at that and it's probably saves Swindon the season. Maybe that's a bit disrespectful to say to Swindon, I don't know, but that's just the way I see it. So I think the reaction was justified. I think that in terms of the game, like I say, take out the 2 mistakes, which I know you can't do because that's part of the game. Take out the 2 massive mistakes, obviously Robertson and Slocum for the second one, which was almost as equally as bad, if not worse. I mean, I don't even know what he's trying there, and I don't like picking on individuals, but and I understand that he gets asked to do a lot with the ball, but it's happened so many times, and I just don't. There's times where you can understand it, like Dorking away last season. Palmer slips or whatever, and he's out his goal. But this one, I don't really get what Slocum's trying to do. The pass wasn't on for me, but anyway, that happens. But the performance itself, like, it wasn't a good performance, but it was we were the better team, I would say, than Swindon, and that's what makes it even tougher to take. Like, if you get beaten by a team who you come up against, you go, all right, they're a good team, better team, they won. We're just not quite good enough. Like, we keep saying when we haven't got the players that are quite good enough for their level. We have the players good enough to beat Swindon. We should have beaten Swindon, and so to lose that game is incredibly disappointing and frustrating. And I'd love to hear what you think of it, because I think we should have walked away with 3 points from that game.
Yeah, look, it's pretty much another story of our season, isn't it? It should have, would have, could have, but we just never did. And maybe you could say we were unlucky, but I don't think it was a performance that justified, really. It was one of the performances that you played in a manner of where if you lost the game, you couldn't be too disappointed because you didn't do enough to win it. I feel like that's the best way you could put it. But yeah, again, look, the reaction at the end of the game is justified. I feel like people need to realise that, if you're happy to stand up and clap, then you feel free. But don't judge people who aren't willing to do that, because at the end of the day, it don't make you any more of a Notts County fan if you stand up and clap them, as opposed to if you stand up and boo. I mean, everyone wants this club to be successful, and I also believe that if you're going to stand up and clap a team off that have played poorly, and it was very evident that it was poorly played on Friday, then you're part of, making that, that false sort of thought that they're playing in an acceptable manner. It's not only that as well. It's when like the manager comes out and says, "Oh, this player was excellent, and we were excellent today. The intensity that we played with was all this and that." Like, if it hasn't been that way, and you're saying that, then these players are going to think it's acceptable to keep playing in that same manner. And I'm not saying the clapping's wrong, but I'm saying that also ties in. If you're going to stand up and clap off a bad performance, then psychologically it shows that you're happy with what you've seen. And I certainly didn't clap on Friday because I was beyond disappointed. You could say, you've mentioned it before, I was frustrated. I was very frustrated at full time, and it didn't surprise me that a lot of people were as well. Again, you pay your money, you can react however you wish, and obviously we'll get on to another reaction later, which all happened yesterday, but my stance on it won't change. I feel like, if you've got an opinion to voice, or you're frustrated, then show it. It's not going to make you any more or less of a fan than someone if they're gonna react negatively. That's what I'd like to say about that. But yeah, I mean, we're in a situation now where obviously it's a mixed bag between fans in terms of what they think of the management team, and that's obviously something we'll get on to next. But obviously we've covered the Swindon game quite well. Let's move on to something a little bit more lighter, a little bit more positive, if you like, which is obviously yesterday. Taking a point away from a game against a team like NK Dons isn't the worst thing Obviously, again, you can leave a little bit disappointed because we were in a winning position at one point, and all you really needed at that point was just an extra goal, and you probably leave 3-1 winners, at least 3-2 winners. They equalise and then score again, etc., etc., and then we equalise later on. But again, we always start by speaking about games, about getting each other's thoughts, and that's exactly what I'll do here. So, Tom, please deliver your thoughts, brother.
I'm happier than most people. I think. For me, going into that game, I was expecting a heavy defeat. So I think to come away with something was pleasing. Obviously, I've watched it back now, and again, I'm happy with the performance that we put in. That's a different to how I normally feel, and it was definitely a contrast to Friday's performance and the feeling around it. What I'm happy with is that, again, Mike Williamson said it himself in his post-match. We did to them what they did to teams at their place. That's what he said. And MK Dons, since Mike Williamson has come in, who a lot of people wanted as manager, and I understand why, he's a brilliant gaffer. Since he's come in, MK Dons have picked up more points than any team in the league. So to then get a point off them, I know to get a point off them sounds like it's at home, but this is the since he's come in, they've been the best team in the league. So I think to get a result against them, and not only get a result, we probably did, we were the better team. He even said it as well. We were the better team. So to do that to a team who have been the best team since he's come in, I think is a positive. Look, I'm not saying it changes everything or it changes anything. If anything, to be honest, it doesn't change a lot. One game, I don't think changes anything, but it certainly gives things to be more positive about. And I just think that, I understand why people are down and why people can't get too excited about a point at home, because it's a point at home. We've been used to winning at home, so to celebrate a point seems a little bit silly. But I think that you're right. Yeah, we should have gone on, and we could have gone to win it. They had a 20-minute period where they were better, and that's kind of what the difference told. But I think that the difference in level of player really told in that 20 minutes, because they're a team that have got so much quality that they can come away from a game where they've not played as well and still get a point. And that's kind of the level we need to get to next season. I'm not saying the level of performance, because they weren't great, but by that I mean that wasn't the best of MK Dons, but they still came away with a point. And that's kind of a little bit like we were last season. There were games last season where we didn't play amazing and we still came away with 3 points or whatever. So there's a lot to learn from that performance, and I think there's a lot to be positive from. I do understand why people aren't, because like you say, we were winning and we came away with just a point. But again, I'm just really happy that we didn't get that record, that the 6 losses, and also a last minute equaliser is always nice to have, I think. What about you, mate? What did you make of it?
Yeah, look, I think it was definitely a game contest of the two teams that I like to play. It's quite similar to each other. I felt like the MK Dons sort of play out from the back allows, Maka and Jasta to press quite high, and there was a spell, 5-10 minutes in the first half where we were really nailing the press. It was really difficult for MK to play out from back, and I believe the first goal that we scored came from breaking the play up high up on the pitch, and it definitely paid off for us. So again, look, to go in at 1-1 at half time after a first half that I don't know if you'd say we deserved to be behind. I mean, the goal from Max Dean was brilliant, by the way. And what I will say about that player is I absolutely love the antics from him. I feel like if we had a player like that at Notts who did that, we'd all love it. So, and I get it as well. You're away and it's a big crowd. You're going to do something to try and wind people up. And we don't have too many players like that, When I can't remember the last time I saw any of our players celebrate like that in front of the home ends when we've been away. But I'd absolutely love to see it, because that is proper. That is proper, I don't want to swear on the podcast, but you know what I'm referring to when I say something house. So yeah, I enjoyed it, and let's put it that way. But yeah, You know, it was a good goal and we cancelled it out. Obviously, Sam Austin, who I love, by the way, because I think every single game he just plays with just, oh, mate, honestly, I'm his biggest fan, I'm convinced, because like I just love watching him. I just think everything that he does on the football pitch, just, you know, everything he does just sums up how you should be in Notts County playing at the intensity, the high press, you know, the constant running, the constant trying to make things happen. He got rewarded with his goal. And then look, second half, you know, Jata header, brilliant header, first goal at Meadow Lane. Celebration was very nice to see, you know, almost the embrace to the cop. We deserved it, you know, and Chickson, by the way, I mean, I've criticised him a lot in the past in this podcast, but one thing I will say is that ball into the box was perfect. I don't think you could have played it any better. And to be fair to Chickson, he didn't have a bad game yesterday either, so fair play to him. But then, you know, we go back to 2-2 and then 3-2 down, and you almost think, wow, this is deja vu a little bit in terms of like what you sort of expected from the game. And obviously that's when the banners came out, and again, we'll get onto that towards the end, but you know, it didn't surprise me to see them anyway, I must admit. But obviously the Mane equalises from the back post, and we leave with a point, which is it good enough? Still, I think the level of opposition probably gets you away with it. If you got a 3-3 draw against someone like Forest Green at home, etc., it wouldn't be good enough. But the fact that it was against someone up there. But then again, look, this is what annoys me and irritates me, because I feel like we, you know, they're fourth, we were fifth at the start of the year. You know, it annoys me that we could have been up there with them. Obviously, it hasn't happened for us. You know, people get different fortunes in football, but I do feel like we could have easily won the game yesterday. I know it sounds a bit like cocky and arrogant because you're playing at MK Dons, they're fourth in the league, but I think at 2-1 you only need to score again and you've killed the game, and I feel like we could have done that, but it just never happened. And again, that obviously ties in with the quality that they've got. They've obviously got some good players. But for me, the biggest disappointment yesterday was the fact that we didn't get the third goal when we needed it most, and that was obviously after we went 2-1 up. We had the chances to do it as well. We had a few good chances, but you know, look, all I'll say is it's something to build off now. You know, it's a point. And again, how many times have we said that on this podcast? You know, after Newport, after Bradford, it's something to build off. It's something to build off, and we never build off it. We have a perfect opportunity to do so, I suppose, with obviously Harrogate coming up at home. Again, another good team though. They won 5-1 yesterday. They're gonna be a pushover to anybody. But I feel like we're at a stage of the season now where momentum is key. You know, especially with everything in the air with the management team. You know what? Before we go on to the momentum side of it, let's just quickly go over obviously the banner situation. Obviously, if you even read SM out, you know, it don't take a lot to work out that meant Stuart Maynard out. And there was a big one that said enough is enough. Stuart Maynard out. And I'd like to get your thoughts on that before mine. But again, I think you know where I'm going to go with it. But let's hear yours first.
Yeah, like I've said every time, just quickly before we get onto that one, just the Max Dean goal, which you mentioned, I think was a brilliant goal. And I know people have said, oh, what about the defending for it? But I think sometimes you just have to put your hands up and praise another team. And I think he turns the two lads, it's a brilliant turn. It's what Crowley does. So we praise Crowley when he does a lovely turn. So I think you've got to praise Max Dean, and then the finish is obviously impeccable. And I think you also made a really good point about the style. And it's why I'm not going to get too high with the highs or too low with the lows, you know. And that's why I wanted to bring some balance. And you mentioned the style. Like you've said, you know, it's a style that suits us because it's another team that likes to play football. Teams that go long or try and bypass our press have success against us. Swindon, kind of this season, have been a team that play football. When we played them the first time round, it was like a end-to-end football game. Second time, when we played them on Friday, they just decided, you know what, against these, we're going to put it in the corner and let them make mistakes. And that, I think that if MK Dons did that, they probably would have had more success. So I think you're spot on about the staff. It was a really good point. About the banners, I'm not going to sit here and condemn them because I think every fan has the right to their opinion. Look, it's not for me. It's not something I would do personally. It's not what I would choose to do. and it just isn't for me. But like when we went to Bromley last season, they had banners out, and I think that it wasn't for the manager; it was about the stand. I think because it was to do with Wrexham given their stand or whatever. But again, I think they have the right to protest and give their opinion, and I think that especially those lads that where they sit in the COP, we know who they are. They're going to be there. They're the ones that will be there when if the attendances go down or up, they will be there no matter what. So I think that they're as loyal as they come, and they're allowed to give their opinion. I think that's, like I say, it isn't for me. It's not something I would do, but that doesn't mean it's not what someone else can do. Like, I'm not the Notts County fan police. Like, I can't tell you what to do. And I think that every fan has the right to their opinion. We go on Twitter and we all share our opinions on there. So it's do I think it will help the team? Possibly not, but it's their way of voicing their opinion. They want their opinion to be heard. And like I say, the owners aren't on Twitter, but the owners will see that message. And like I've said time and time again, fans ultimately make the decisions at football clubs. That they're the paying customer, like you said. And if you were going to watch someone every week and it wasn't good enough, then I'm sure you'd voice your opinion as well. Like I say, it doesn't reflect my opinion. It doesn't also reflect what I would do. But I don't necessarily think you can condemn fans for giving their opinion, because at the end of the day, fans, like everyone says, they are they're the lifeblood of a club. Anyone that's working at a club, that owns the club, plays for the club, manages the club, they are custodians who are passing through. The fans are going to be there come rain or shine. So I think that they're allowed to have their opinion.
Yeah, I'm very happy you mentioned that the owners want on social media, because that's where I wanted to almost take this down. Look, the owners aren't on social media, and look, the players sort of go hiding on there as well. When we were losing games, you never really got anything out of a player. When we won, some of them were quick to come out of it, and I think, look, if you're not going to read social media, then they're going to bring it to the stadium. And if you want to get your message across, that's obviously the perfect way. I think this, again, it's not something I'd do. Like you said, it's not something you'd do. But if no one's going to listen to you or read it on social media, then how else are you going to do it? And that's exactly what they did. And like you said, I know a lot of the lads down there, and they are as home as away as any supporter that I know. I see. Obviously, I'm also there every single week, and I see all of them virtually every single week. And that's what I want to say. Like, it doesn't make you any more of a fan for publicly condemning it on social media. Having a go at them for doing it, because if we're going to actually sit here and be honest, we haven't seen a home win this year. We've got 9 points out of 42. It is not good enough. And if they're not going to be heard or read online, then they're going to go and do that. And like I said, if you're happy to clap it off, then you do that. But it doesn't change the fact that 9 points out of 42 is not good enough. And some of the people online, I'm not going to name any names, but some of the people online that were condemning, the banners, etc. I see the lads who held the banners and the people in that section every week in, week out. But some of the people that I saw condemning them, I don't see you week in, week out. So, and you're trying to tear down their almost fan status, trying to make them feel lesser fans because of what they've done, which is completely wrong to do, because you can agree or disagree with your banners and everything like that, but they work 5 days a week and go to football on a Saturday. They work hard and they spend their hard-earned money on this football club. And when they haven't seen a home win this year and only seen 9 points claimed out of 42 played for, I think they have every single right to voice their frustrations. And if you disagree with it, you disagree with it. But don't sit and condemn and almost draw out people for asking for change of something that hasn't been good enough. And I don't know. I sort of took the back seat and just let it all unfold. But what I will say is, I don't want to say necessarily respect for the banners, but respect for putting your opinion out there. Because again, we've mentioned it. Not many people read social media in terms of the people that are gonna, the people that need to see these sort of opinions. But they would have saw the banners yesterday. So, if you got to get your opinion across, you got to get it across. And look, who wants to spend money every week and watch us lose every week? Nobody. That's not what I mean. And everyone wants the fortunes to change. Because they've held a banner down there, doesn't mean they don't want this football club to fail. They want us to win games. And that's the same for everyone across the stadium. No one goes to the game wanting us to get beat. But the reality is we are getting beat a lot more than we're winning football matches this year. And whether it's a new management team or someone who's been there 9 or 10 years, this run of form would get you sacked in any other job. And that brings me on nicely to speaking to you about the management team now. Because, look, every single week my opinion changes on Stuart Maynard. Some weeks I want to give him time, some weeks I want him out the door. If you asked me on Friday, I would have said I want him gone. After watching his interview yesterday, I kind of want to just let him see out the season and reevaluate. Saturday we'll probably lose and then I'll probably want him out again. So look, it's one of them in a minute. But it's difficult because again, you manage it in an environment where you haven't took it by storm, and you've got everyone in sort of a mixed bag. You obviously got your banners, and then you got people booing, and you can't sit there and be disappointed by it because it is what I don't know what else you would expect with the form that we're on in 2024. But again, I want to get your thoughts on them because it is difficult to take, especially after the year we had last year and sort of start of the season we had. It is difficult to just slowly trickle down the table, which is what we have done. I wouldn't even say quietly because it's kind of been all over social media. So let me just get your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that. That is what else do you expect? Because I would like to say that, and a lot of people obviously know that I'm supportive of Stuart, and obviously I was really glad that I thought it was brilliant when he was appointed. And if I didn't know him before, or hadn't closely followed his Wealdstone team, or even gone in to Wealdstone and stuff like that, and I'd purely based it on what I've seen at Notts, then I would probably have the same. I hadn't seen all that before. I'd probably have the same opinion. So I completely get it. I don't sit there and think, I can't believe these fans think that he should go because look how brilliant we've been. We haven't been brilliant. So I'm not sitting there and based on the sample of Notts alone, like you've mentioned, any other most jobs if that run of form you probably go, So I completely get it, and that brings me on to obviously the inevitable. But I have seen those things, and it isn't going to change my opinion and belief in it because I think that I do believe in him and his management team and his methods. Have they worked so far at Notts? No, they haven't. The results speak for themselves, don't they? But I think that it would be remiss of me to change my belief in him that he's going to work. Look, I think he will be a good manager, whether it's at Notts or elsewhere. I think he will be a success. But success isn't linear, is it? And sometimes it doesn't work at certain places, and that's not me saying it's not going to work at Notts, because I really, really hope it does. And of course, I think that we reevaluate in the summer, because I think there are underlying issues that were beginning to come to the fore under Luke Williams. And I reiterate, they weren't as exaggerated as they are now. Who knows how it would have played out if we kept Luke Williams, but we didn't, because he went, and that's that, he's gone. But I think that I do believe that they were slowly coming to the surface a little bit more. We lost Luke Williams' last game, and again, that's not me saying that he wasn't a good gaffer. He was absolutely brilliant. But what I'm saying is that it wasn't like we were on a 10-game winning run before. Look, I completely get why people want him to go, but I obviously want him to be given time. And I think that Mike Williamson, as I've mentioned already, if you watch his interview, he kind of summed up how I feel about it. He obviously knows Stuart Maynard from his time managing against him in the National League. And I think that, it will eventually turn. I do believe that. But like I say, that is based more off of having a And again, I don't want to sound, I hate saying that because it sounds like I'm entitled and I know this, and I'm not coming across in that way whatsoever. It's just that obviously I've been fortunate to go down to Wealdstone, watch their games, not just against Notts again, which obviously we won. Notts won comfortably. So again, I get based on that as well. People might not want him, but yeah, I do believe in Stuart Maynard and Matty and all them there, because I do believe in them. I understand, completely get why people aren't, but I think that the positive result against Milton Keynes kind of can give us cause for optimism, and I think that's what we can be capable of. There have been flashes of positivity. I think they have sorted some things out. Some things have got worse. We have been less threatening going forwards. But I think for me, you give them time. But as I say, I do understand the point of views of people, and also there isn't a lot you can argue with people having that opinion based on, like you say, the 9 points from 42. There's not a lot you can argue against that. But that's just my personal opinion. And just like the banners, that's not. I wouldn't ever push that opinion on anyone and say you have to think like I do, because that's just me. And I'm hoping. I know everyone hopes they're going to do well. I'm hoping that it will turn around. But I also think we're at a critical point now where a decision needs to be made. I think it's either you make the decision now or you stick to the summer and you back them. I think that if you kind of do neither and you go, well, okay, we'll wait till the end of the season to decide, that's when you start getting caught behind. So you either make the decision now, or this is talk about ownership, by the way, or you stick with him and back him. And I think based on what we've seen, the fact that no decision has been made, I think they are going to back him in the summer, because I'd love to get your thoughts on the Stuart Maynard interview, because I know you mentioned that the post match. I thought it was a really much improved post match, and he mentioned in there that work is happening behind the scenes, and I thought that's a point that's maybe not been picked up upon is that he's mentioned recruitment. So maybe the owners have already started to talk to him about recruitment, which suggests that they are A, backing him, and B, potentially giving him more involvement than other managers have had. So I just wanted to get your thoughts on that, and also the interview in general, because I thought that it was a really tough interview for him, but I actually thought that maybe his responses in that have given people a little bit more confidence in him.
Yeah, look, if it's him next season, it's him next season. Do I think it'd be a risk? Potentially. I think everyone can see that it hasn't been good enough. Form would suggest that it was always going to be a risk in the first place. Bringing in someone like Stuart Maynard, who hasn't had any Football League experience, and that's form before he joined. And the form since hasn't been any better. In fact, it's probably been worse. But if you're going to back him, the owners don't ever strike me as people that are going to, come away from what they believe in. If they think something's right, they'll go for it. And yeah, you're all right. He has mentioned a lot about recruitment, and if he's going to get more involvement, then that's arguably better. But it's only better in a way that it has to be better than what we already have through the doors. And does he have that sort of pull factor? Only managing at Wealdstone and clubs beneath, who knows? I think, again, obviously Luke's gone, but if Luke was still in, you gave him more emphasis and more, power to make his own signings, I think you'd probably arguably get a better quality of player, just because of where he's been in his past in comparison to Stuart Maynard. But that's not to say that these big names or good players won't join, because again, it's Notts County, for goodness sake, and there's not many teams in this division, or the division above that are bigger than this football club. Not many teams get 10,000 at home every week in a 20,000 capacity stadium. And there's still, the frightening thing about this football club is there's still a potential to grow. So yeah, it is still an attractive place for players to come and play, but it's only going to be more attractive if we end the season with momentum, and this is why I keep banging on about it on the podcast. You finish the season now. If you finish the season with 3 straight wins, for example, and you'd argue that's taking you in with some momentum. And it's also proving that Stu can obviously get a run of games together where he's winning football matches. And if he doesn't do that again, it almost ties into the same sort of thing where it's a risk if you're going to stick with him and back him. But maybe that's what he needs, and you just never know. What I don't want to happen is I don't want to come out into the next season and have this similar sort of form, and then he goes, and then we have to bring in a new manager with players he didn't sign, even though like the signings aren't made solely by manager here. But again, we've mentioned that if he does get more of a say, more of a sort of what he wants, then it will be players that he brought in to play his way, and then if a new manager comes in after Stuart Maynard and doesn't fancy half of these players, then we've got a similar sort of problem to what we've had this season. So there's a lot of risk, but there's also a lot of reward up for grabs, and that's the beauty of football. There's a lot of high risk, high reward, and I do think right now it would be a very high risk to stick with Stuart Maynard. But again, it wouldn't come with that high reward if it pays off. And I think the owners wanted Stuart Maynard. It was very clear, and I don't think they're in any rush to push him out the door. However, a bad end to the season, a run of form where what we've been on so far under him, 2 wins in 14. By the end of the season, if we don't win any games, that could be 2 wins in 18 or 19, I can't remember what it is off the top of my head. But again, it's not good enough. That wouldn't be good enough, and it'll be interesting to see. It's a big summer, don't get me wrong, it's an absolutely big summer. But one question I wanted to ask you quickly before we just rapidly fly through our thoughts of the Harrogate game is, when do you think the best time is to announce the season ticket sales for next season? Because there's obviously talks of it obviously being an increase in price, but then how can you ask for an increase in price when you haven't won a game yet in 2024? And that's the biggest thing for me, is you haven't won yet at home at 2024. When are you possibly going to ask fans for more money to come back next season and come back week in, week out and watch us at home when we haven't won a game at home since the 29th of December, I want to say, whenever Morecambe at home was? Yeah, when do you go about bringing that out? Because I'm sure it's a conversation that's been had at the club, and I honestly could not tell you when the best time would be, because I'd imagine a lot of people are put off right now.
Yeah, I'm the same boat. I couldn't tell you when the best time is. We've got 3 home games left. I mean, in an ideal world, we've got to play Stockport, so probably not going to happen. Ideal world, you win all 3, and then all of a sudden you go, okay, then you announce it. I don't think even if you win all 3, you can really justify increasing the price. I don't think you can justify increasing it. Maybe that's me being naive from a business point of view, but I don't think our tickets are massively cheap. I'm not saying they're massively expensive, but in terms of a one-off match day ticket, I don't think it. I don't know compared to the rest of the league, but I don't think it's like massively cheap. So I don't think it's like we're really undervalued and it's like we've got to put the price up, and like you said, I'm not sure you can justify putting the price up when coming to this season, like you said on every pod, everyone around the club was talking about promotion. Next season, will we be talking about promotion before the season kicks off? That's a different question, and so you can therefore link the two. If we're hoping for promotion this season, you charge X price. If next season we're saying top half, maybe playoff finish would be positive, and you're charging more, that doesn't really add up, does it? So I'm not sure when you announce it. I guess the ideal is you beat Stockport and then you announce after that. I guess is that right? I don't know. I don't know when you announce it, but I think you're right. There'll be a drop off. I think the same hardcore fans that get a season ticket every season will still get a season ticket, won't they? But I think coming into this season, we had a real momentum, we had a really good product, and a real excitement. I'm not saying that next season can't be positive. I'm not saying that I think next season will finish higher than we have this season. I think we will, just based on the fact that we're currently 15th. I think we'll finish higher than 15th next season, regardless of who the manager is. I think the investment and the players brought in the summer will dictate that. Because I don't think the owners can afford to let us again finish lower than that again. But is the same level of excitement there? I'm not sure that it is. It's definitely not, is it? So it's difficult to know when to announce them, and difficult also to know about prices. But for me, I wouldn't. I'm glad I'm not the person making that decision. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, you and me both, mate. Definitely isn't. It doesn't look like it's ever going to be an ideal time. Really, like you look at. Hopefully, you'd imagine after your next home win, and you've only got 3 damn games there. You're not really sport for choice, but maybe a win on Saturday could take you down that avenue of releasing the information. But obviously, now it's given us a good lead into Saturday. Obviously, we go back to Meadow Lane, back at home, back in front of 10,000 fans, and Harrogate Town come to town if you like. And it's another big game again for both teams really, because I think both teams want to. Well, Harrogate obviously on some form of momentum. We're looking to kickstart some form of momentum. So it's either going to be some team continues their momentum or some team begins some form of momentum and ends the other team's form of momentum. And it's all about momentum for these two sides. And let me just get your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I'll also have a quick look at some stats to throw out to wrap us up for Harrogate. They've got the third best away record in the league. Harrogate have. The only two teams that have got better away records are Stockport and Mansfield. So that kind of tells you the level of team they can be away from home. The last time they lost away from home was Mansfield when they lost 9-2. So a bit crazy, but since then they've played Crewe away, got a point there. Played Swindon away, got a point there. They played Wrexham away, got a point there. Played Barrow away, got a point there, and played Wimbledon away and got a point there. So other than Barrow, where we also drew, they're all games that we went away and didn't get anything from. So that already rings alarm bells for me. They're unbeaten in 5. They've conceded just 2 goals in the last 5, and they won 5-1 in the last game, despite being 1-0 down until the 60th minute. So when you add all that up, I know that sounds like I've been coming in with a bit more positivity today, but Harrogate are kind of the team you don't really want to play. Like, I think their season is kind of over. Like, they can still get in the playoffs. Don't get it wrong. That is still possible. It is still possible for them. But there's a lot of teams between them and the playoffs. But they're still going to be fighting for that, aren't they? And it's kind of a horrible team to come up against because, again, without being disrespectful, you come up against Harrogate at home, and it's kind of a game that you think we should be getting at least a point, if not 3 from. But when you look at the fact that they're really good away from home, and they've still got the playoffs to play for, even though I do think that'll be a step too far for them, it isn't a game I'm that looking forward to that much when you actually break it down. So it's a bit of a weird one. On paper, when you first glance at it, you think, yeah, this is a winnable game. But when you actually dive into it a little bit deeper, I don't know, it's a bit more precarious for me. What do you think of it, mate?
I think it's going to be, it's got everything to be a good game. I think there's obviously history between the two sides from obviously the Wembley playoff final. So there's always going to be that, not necessarily sort of heat, but there's definitely going to be a lot of, maybe animosity between two fan bases. I'm not sure, but obviously they beat us at the start of the season as well in another game where we performed poorly. And look, you've mentioned they're the best, third best away form. Now that takes some doing, especially for a team like Harrogate, who you wouldn't expect to have that sort of away form. So it'll be a difficult game. Of course it'll be. I think every game's difficult for us at the minute because there's so much pressure on it. But I feel like these players need to understand, and this management team needs to understand that. No one wants you to lose these games. No fan's going to turn up and want you to lose. Then it'll be the same on Saturday. They'll be very well backed against, again, the third best away team in the league. I'm sure they'll be well backed as well. Harrogate to Nottingham isn't too far away. Now they haven't got the biggest fan base, but don't make any excuses. They should have a decent following. I think it's definitely one that we should be eyeing up winning. It will look even more impressive if you beat them, obviously with what the sort of stats they've turned in away from home. But I don't think it's one that we should be worried about playing. I feel like we've got bigger games to worry about. The Stockport one. There's no disrespect to Harrogate, but hopefully we get a result because it's all about momentum for us at this stage of the season. We're not really playing for anything, but we want to win games still. Sometimes when you're in 16th at this point in the season, you know you're not going to go down. You know you're not going up. Take your foot off the gas. That's definitely not what we can afford to do, because we're playing. The players are playing for the manager now. You know, you're playing for somebody's job. You know, they all come out in their interviews and say that they are playing for him. So prove it and get your first home win of the season, of the year rather, on Saturday. And if you do that, then no one can doubt that you were telling the truth. But it's going to be difficult. I'll tell you that, it will be difficult. They're clearly doing something right away from home. They clearly don't. They're clearly not phased, if you like, about going away to these places. You know, you mentioned some of the games there. Obviously, they got hammered by Lansfield, but some of the places they've gone and took points where we've gone and lost. So it'll be difficult for sure, but it kind of ties in nicely now with what we do next, and that's a score prediction. I'm going to go. I think we could easily get our first home win of the year. So I'm going to go 2-1 Knots. I do think Harrogate score. Let's not take the mick here. We don't like clean sheets. It's never going to happen for us against these. But I don't know. I just feel like eventually you have to win a home game, and it has to happen sooner rather than later. Because again, when do you release your season ticket information otherwise? But I think Jata scores again. Maybe he'll score twice, so I'll go Jata twice for us. But yeah, hopefully it'll be 2-1, and if not, then we'll be back here to talk about something that we don't want to talk about, clearly. But anyway, your score prediction?
I'm going to go 1-1. I'm not quite at the position yet where I can be predicting a win for us. As I say, I'm more positive after the MK performance, but the figures and the stats are telling me, we should be a bit worried about them. Look, I really hope that I'm wrong. I hope that your prediction's right. I hope that we're actually more emphatic. Obviously, we've got to get past James Belshaw in goal. Obviously, a shout out to him, Notts fan, going playing at Meadow Lane. But for the night, I'll be hoping that it's he'll be picking the ball out of the net quite a few times, hopefully. But can't quite see it yet. I've gone 1-1 just because, I like you said, I do think we should get something from this game, despite the fact that they've got a very good away record. I do think, I know they're above us in the table, but I do think on our day, our best level probably is better than their best level, but they're more consistent than we are. So let's just hope that the performance we put in against MK, we can build on that. Hopefully Jata can get another goal. Absolutely back him to do that. So I've gone 1-1, but I hope that I'm wrong in a positive way.
Yeah, well, I obviously hope you are too, because I would love to see us win a game at home this year. But obviously that concludes the episode. We like to wrap it off in a nice positive way. So again, look, thank you everybody who's obviously watching us and helping us to get to 10k channel views in what was 15 episodes. Obviously this is 16 now. We have a lot to be excited for. Obviously maybe not so much on the pitch, you never know, but we're going to be hopefully delivering some good episodes in the next few weeks. So we'll obviously drop them when they're ready and recorded and ready to be put out. But again, look, just a massive thank you really for all the support, because it's massive and it means a lot, and I'm sure Tom would like to add to it.
Yeah, no, just echoing your thoughts there. Keep your eyes peeled for some special episodes hopefully dropping soon. Keep your eyes on socials, obviously at Not to Talk About on Twitter, which you can, I'm sure, will be linked below wherever you're watching or listening. Remember to press subscribe, because as I said at the start, it really helps us. Follow on Spotify, because as I say, that really helps us as well. Shout out to the Spotify listeners, because we can see you as well. I know we talk about YouTube numbers, but Spotify numbers, we can see that you're listening as well. And thanks so much for the support. And just as I say, got quite a few exciting things coming up, pods and other things as well. So just keep your eyes out for that. And thank you as always, because it really is amazing, the support.
It is, and obviously Tom mentions there, we got a few things to look forward to, but until then, you're just going to have to wait. And like we do every episode, we're going to sign this off by saying a massive, come on, you guys.